Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. So today we're going to be picking back up in Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and we are in chapter 2, which is called Initiation, and then there's little subsections within that chapter. So today's sections we're going to cover two is the meeting with the goddess, as well as woman as temptress. So I hope that you enjoyed today's presentation. I have, of course, just I'm going to just touch on the most clear and impactful phrases and sections within the portion I'm going to share with you all today. So that way we can kind of move through it kind of quickly and just pull the most important points out for our reflection. So again, I hope you're doing well today, and I thought I'd share with y'all on my poison ivy rash. I'm better. Thank you so much for your well wishes. And the two things that I have found that have helped me the most, and let me just say, this is by far the worst case I've ever had. In the past, just if you get just a touch of it, just a mild case, it's like, you know, you got your calamine lotion, all those drying lotions, those have been totally sufficient, but this time they were not. And so yeah, I actually had it on several different places on my body, so it was very uncomfortable. So if you ever find yourself in that kind of unfortunate situation, the two things that have helped me the most this time around have been an Epsom salt bath, as well as taking Benadryl. And so that has just given me the most relief. And actually, by doing those two things, I haven't had to use as much cream. And I feel like just letting my skin be exposed to the air has helped it too. So I hope that helps if you ever find yourself in that situation. Hopefully you'll remember that. Again, I'm not a doctor, obviously, so I just want to make that statement for liability purposes for anybody out there. But yes, I can't imagine an Epsom salt bath or a Benadryl would be bad for anyone. I think they're great. They're wonderful products, and I'm thankful, so thankful that they exist. So it's funny because I didn't intend for it to be this way, but you know, talking about gratitude, it's, you know, a lot of times it truly comes down to perspective. What one person is grateful for can differ greatly from what the next person is grateful for, and the only difference can be their own experiences in life, their perspective, because of what they have experienced as well as what they haven't experienced, right? It's kind of like that whole you don't know what you got till it's gone. That old saying, that old phrase, it's very much relevant or applicable to or related to the hero's journey. And you know, just as a quick example, you could apply that to someone who's been through narcissistic abuse. You know, there's so many things that come into play in that kind of situation, and I feel like just about anybody can be fooled and conned. I don't know that there's truly a fail-safe way, 100% guarantee that a person would never fall victim to a liar, a con, a manipulator. But what I can say is, when you go through any kind of hardships whatsoever, including psychological abuse, being manipulated or conned, when you come out on the other side, and some people don't make it out, but if you are blessed and fortunate enough to come out on the other side, then it certainly just adds to your life experience, which gives you perspective and makes you appreciate even more when you have safety and peace in your life, just the little things, you know. I mean, A lot of times narcissistic people can make you feel guilty just for doing things that, like taking care of yourself, like doing something nice for yourself. Like even if you want to just relax and sip your coffee outside and listen to the birds for a minute, they can even make you feel guilty for doing that, instead of whatever it is they think you should be doing. So it's truly all about perspective. Because if that, in that example, if that's something that a person experienced, then when they're out of that situation, they're gonna really enjoy that coffee, on the porch, going forward, because they can finally do it without being guilt tripped. So that's just an example, and it's kind of a good way to ease into the topic today. I want to open also by mentioning, and I've mentioned this before, children, a lot of times children idealize their parents. And I think I mentioned to you all before, like when I was teaching, I taught elementary aged children. And it doesn't matter even if a young child knows that their parents are engaged in some kind of even like illegal activity or something bad, they're still going to frame it within their own mind as not bad. They just can't see their parents a lot of times as bad, right? And that's it's really beautiful from the lens of just being innocent. An innocent child who has that good heart and only knows good, only believes in the goodness of everything. But the problem with that is when you carry that into your adulthood, at that point you're considered naive, and you're a perfect target for someone who's going to exploit that trust. That automatic trust you have within, they're going to exploit that for their own benefit. And so the thing is, manipulative people are depending on us to continue in this mindset. It doesn't have to be like 100%, but if you're mostly trusting, if you still mostly, even if you just want to see the good in the world, and that's all you want to see, even if you know there's bad, but you just have it in your core, you've just latched on to this belief that this is the right approach to life, to always see the good. It can be very dangerous. And so, like I said, narcissistic people, cons, liars, manipulative people looking to exploit and abuse you, take advantage of you, they're depending on you having that mindset, that trusting, naive or innocent mindset. And so what's interesting is it's sort of, when you have that mindset, what it does in creating your subjective reality is it creates this illusion of perfection, which isn't accurate. It's not true. And so I feel like if you think about it, this illusion of perfection almost seems like it's been perpetuated throughout history in society, at the societal level. And we realize, when you get to thinking about it, it's not only embraced to boost fragile egos, like for a narcissist, right? But also for marketing purposes. Just essentially, they're advertising the lie that perfection can be achieved, or bought. It's all about selling their products or their services. It's dangling that carrot, like you can actually achieve perfection. And so that's the lie, right? The illusion that perfection exists in this reality and is attainable. That's the lie. And so, if you look at some of the past stories we've covered on my channel, specifically one from the book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, The Handless Maiden. If you remember in that story, the family started out in a good position. I mean, they were content. They had a farm, and it was, I can't remember exactly everything, but it was a mother and father and their daughter, who was the young maiden in the story. And so they started out, self-sufficient and, content. Everything was good, right? And then along comes the temptation. This is the second phase. So you start with a good position, right? Not perfect, but good enough. And then you have some kind of temptation that comes along, right? Of more or better or best. And then if that temptation is bought into, right, then there is a price that is paid, right? And then the fourth part is, once that price is paid, it starts the main character or the hero or you or me on the journey. And what is the journey? To discover the ultimate truth of this reality, right? That's a part of it. It's a big part of it, if not all of it. We've mentioned before about union with, the higher power. And so I think it's kind of multifaceted, when you talk about ultimate truth, right? I think there's a lot of pieces to that. And so today I just want to specifically focus on the part of the ultimate truth being that this reality, that perfection is not what we think it is in this reality, and or not really attainable in this reality, right? It's like adjusting our expectations and seeing the truth of things for what they are, so that we're not going to fall for the temptation of the dangling carrot, okay? So essentially what we're doing is, you can think of it this way, it's like we're recalibrating our mindset, okay? It's like going from immature expectations to reality. And depending on where the person starts, if they start out, just super sheltered and what's the old saying, with a silver spoon in their mouth, pampered, all this stuff, and then maybe the journey is to learn accountability or responsibility, or it may be to go all the way to understand the depth and the scope of the evil in this world. And that right there can be super shocking and totally take your breath away, even if you don't start out in a sheltered kind of way. Even if you start out from understanding there's bad in the world, but you're kind of balanced or whatever, or you're living responsibly and all this stuff, just to learn about the depth and scope of the evil in the world is truly shocking for all of us, right? So let's go ahead and read some of the parts that I've highlighted here. So we're going to start with section 2, called The Meeting with the Goddess. And again, I'm only pulling some main points from here, okay? I've read through, but I'm just hitting those main points for you all. So he starts out with a story where he's highlighting this main example that we're going to talk about. Excuse me. And it's talking about the tale of the Prince of the Lonesome Isle. And so it's really interesting to read through that. I encourage you to take a look at that if you have interest. So he explains the theme of this story, and he says, the Lady of the House of Sleep is a familiar figure in fairy tale and myth. It says she is the paragon of all paragons of beauty, the reply to all desire, the bliss-bestowing goal of every hero's earthly and unearthly quest. She is mother, sister, mistress, bride. Whatever in the world has lured, whatever has seemed to promise joy has been premonitory of her existence in the deep of sleep, if not in the cities and forests of the world. For she is the incarnation of the promise of perfection, the soul's assurance that at the conclusion of its exile in a world of organized inadequacies, the bliss that once was known will be known again. And then he goes into describing, the mother, or just the archetypal, I feel like, image of the mother, and how important that is to an infant, right? And so he kind of expands on that concept, and it's really interesting because he goes into explaining, the not only the benign but the bad mother too. And so he explains like the absent or unattainable mother, and so like the mother who would hold to herself the growing child trying to push away. So it's just really interesting to read all the different, there's like complexes that he reviews here with regard to that, he touches on rather, with regards to the mother figure. And then there's another story which he reviews, but again, we're going to hit the highlights here. So he says, there exists a close and obvious correspondence between the attitude of the young child toward its mother and that of the adult toward the surrounding material world. It's almost like that conditioning that happens within us can happen at this super early young age, possibly, when we're so young, we're not, that a young child, like an infant, is not aware, right? It's almost like their conscious awareness hasn't developed yet, right? They're just totally trusting. And so when you hear about the immature mindset, a lot of times that's related to that part of or that operating mode of a person's mind when they're just super naive because they're super unaware, right? So just really interesting. Even his footnotes are super interesting in this book. But he says she encompasses the encompassing, nourishes the nourishing, and is the life of everything that lives, right? Symbolically, she is also the death of everything that dies. The whole round of existence is accomplished within her sway, from birth through adolescence, maturity, and senescence to the grave. She is the womb and the tomb, the sow that eats her farrow. Thus, she unites the good and the bad, exhibiting the two modes of the remembered mother, not as personal only, but as universal. The devotee is expected to contemplate the two with equal equanimity. Through this exercise, his spirit is purged of its infantile, inappropriate sentimentalities and resentments, and his mind open to the inscrutable presence which exists not primarily as good and bad with respect to his childlike human convenience, his will and woe, but as the law and image of the nature of being. So to sum that up, I view it's like the process that one goes through to not only become aware of bad or evil in the world, or that is lacking perfection, but not only to become aware of it, but to accept it, to truly accept that is, like he says, the law and image of the nature of being, not just this this reality that we're in now via this human experience, but within ourselves too, right? To accept that we're perfectly imperfect. It's just part of the design of who we are, because you're never going to be able to learn and grow if you don't accept and admit your faults, right? And it's it's about stopping that self-condemnation too, right? Not judging in a condemning kind of way, which is a huge I guess you might say motif, or part at least, of a lot of religions, right? I'm thinking specifically of Christianity. And so yeah, and then of course he just expands on that and gives more examples and different stories. He says woman in the picture language of mythology represents the totality of what can be known. The hero is the one who comes to know. If you remember, there was a story in Women Who Run with the Wolves about this man who was pursuing these sisters in marriage, and he had to first pass the test of learning their true names. So it's, and then there's the skeleton woman myth, if I'm remembering correctly, where she's scary, but the task is to truly know her, right, and not to run from that task. So yeah, truth is not always an easy pill to swallow, is it? So it says the meeting with the goddess, who is incarnate in every woman, is the final test of the talent of the hero to win the boon of love. And it says charity in parentheses. And then this is important, which is, because it says that's the ultimate, right? The final test of the talent of the hero to win the boon of love, which is life itself enjoyed as the encasement of eternity. So I don't feel like this is separate from my personal, my previous personal interpretations of the hero's journey, where, I feel like the ultimate goal is union with the divine, right? Understanding our spiritual heritage, right? As children of God, because remember that the Bible says God is love. God is love. And so here this is saying that's the ultimate boon, right? Is to win the boon of love. And then I love that he expands on that and says, which is life itself, and not just life itself, but life itself enjoyed as the encasement of eternity. That to me reminds me of the concept of paradise on earth. Paradise on earth. So it's, yes, it's all about recalibrating that mindset through learning the truth, right? Through the illusions, all the illusions of this reality. And then it goes into the third section called Woman as the Temptress. All right, the mystical marriage with the queen goddess of the world represents the hero's total mastery of life. For the woman is life, the hero its knower and master. And the testings of the hero, which were preliminary to his ultimate experience and deed, were symbolical of those crises of realization by means of which his consciousness came to be amplified and made capable of enduring the full possession of the mother destroyer, his inevitable bride. Again, I'm reminded of the story of Skeleton Woman here. With that, he knows that he and the Father are one. He is in the Father's place. So I'll let you think on that and pull your own, use your own discernment on that. Personally, I don't know how that sits with me as far as a truth that I would adopt when it says he is in the Father's place, right? He and the Father are one. I mean, of course, you can frame this through the lens of Christianity with the Trinity, the concept of the Trinity, and then, with Christ, and then the explanation that we are the body of Christ. So in that regard, it's, when I mention things like the divine spark within us, I definitely think that there is a numinous aspect of the Creator within us. And so that's just a whole nother, we could just expand on that, forever. But I'll just let you take that and find your own truth in reference to that. It says, every failure to cope with a life situation must be laid in the end to a restriction of consciousness. Very interesting. Wars and temper tantrums are the makeshifts of ignorance. Regrets are illuminations come too late. Yes, I thought that was very accurately described. The whole sense of the ubiquitous myth of the hero's passage is that it shall serve as a general pattern for men and women wherever they may stand along the scale. Therefore, it is formulated in the broadest terms. The individual has only to discover his own position with reference to this general human formula, and let it then assist him past his restricting walls. Who and where are his ogres? Those are the reflections of the unsolved enigmas of his own humanity. What are his ideals? Those are the symptoms of his grasp of life. Yes. So then he talks about, how things come to light in our dreams. And then it says the crux of the curious difficulty lies in the fact that our conscious views of what life ought to be seldom correspond to what life really is. It's all about adjusting those expectations, right? Generally, we refuse to admit within ourselves, as within our friends, or within our friends, the fullness of that pushing, self-protective, malodorous, carnivorous, lecherous fever, which is the very nature of the organic cell. Rather, we tend to perfume, whitewash, and reinterpret. Meanwhile, imagining that all the flies in the ointment, all the hairs in the soup, are the faults of some unpleasant someone else. Yes, that's projection right there, right? But when it suddenly dawns on us, or is forced to our attention, that everything we think or do is necessarily tainted with the odor of the flesh. I like how he put necessarily tainted with the odor of the flesh. There's purpose to us being put under pressure and to go through these challenges. There's purpose. It's necessary. Then, not uncommonly, there is experienced a moment of revulsion. This is interesting. Life, the acts of life, the organs of life, woman in particular as the great symbol of life, become intolerable to the pure soul. So that's really interesting. So it says, he's mentioning Hamlet. In reference to that, it says, like Hamlet, he turns from the fair features of the world to search the darkness for a higher kingdom than this. Again, abandoning what's sufficient, right? A lot of times because we don't recognize it as, like that movie title, As Good as It Gets, for wanting more, the temptation, right? Being lured. So, yeah, it says, the seeker of the life beyond life must press beyond her, surpass the temptations of her call, and soar to the immaculate ether beyond. So I thought that was really interesting. That's, to me, just another way to describe the descent part of the hero's journey, right? And then to wrap up this section, he mentions this. There are incredible droves of devils in our way. We are poor travelers in a world which is as well the devil's field as the devil's, I don't know how to pronounce this, Gaol, a world in which every nook whereof the devil is encamped with a band of robbers to pester all that have their faces looking Zionward. And that's a quote from the book called Wonders of the Invisible World from 1693, page 63, from Cotton Mather. So super interesting. And then I just want to wrap up by saying this. I want to encourage you to examine stories and even movies where you can identify the hero's journey, right? Specifically today, with regards to our discussion, like, can you pinpoint how the characters underestimated what they should have been appreciating? Because again, there was some type of temptation, right? Think about sometimes, right? Think about the movie Frozen again. Elsa with her powers. They were just a nuisance to her, right? She didn't value them because she didn't understand them. So understanding is critical, right? And then I was thinking about Moana, another Disney movie. Her family, if you think about it, sometimes it's not the main character or the hero that goes on the journey willingly, or that keeps themselves from progressing. Sometimes it's the influence of others, and that's really obvious in Moana because it's her family that tried to keep her small, right? When she was meant for great things. So there was some pressure there. So you have to be able to flex your mind and be able to see all the different aspects of how the hero's journey can play out and look in different characters, and from different perspectives. That I feel like once you really grasp it, I think that we're going to just continue to be able to unveil layers and layers of understanding for ourselves in evaluating these different movies and stories through the lens of the hero's journey. And so ultimately, the ideal outcome is that we have dissolved our subjective reality to the point that we can truly see the objective reality, the real of this reality, as well as how valuable we are, and so that we won't be taken advantage again, so that we won't fall victim again to anyone who's trying to push this lie of some type of possible perfection that can be achieved. So it just is, again, it's all about shifting our perspectives and just recalibrating our expectations to be in alignment with reality. And it just gifts you really with just more gratitude and appreciation for the little things. So I hope that you have been inspired and encouraged by today's message. I thank you so much for coming along today to listen. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.